Welcome to Voices, a video podcast whose purpose is to give voice to teachers, administrators, parents, students, and alumni about topics of interest to the school community. I'm your host, Mariette Brush, a member of the District Communications team. Joining us today are the leaders of the REI Council, the Race, Equity, and Inclusion Council, Roy Bishop, Lily Loader, and Jeffrey Young. Dr. Bishop is the Deputy Superintendent for Educational Services. Ms. Loader is a Special Education Supervisor, and Mr. Young is an Assistant Principal at Grosse Pointe North High School. Thank you all for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
So I'll begin by asking you to give a brief background on why the REI Council was created.
Well, the district last year noticed and indicated even through a resolution that there really were issues related to equity and inclusion that as a district we wanted to address. And we also knew that that race is one of those really critical issues that really does impact education for a lot of students. And it's one of the primary tensions sometimes even within our district. And so as a district that's focused on all students, we knew it was important to have that addressed. And then many things in our world even make it necessary for us as a district to respond in ways that really help all of our students achieve, to feel welcomed, and be at their best here in Grosse Pointe Public Schools. So the REI Council really was a way for multiple stakeholders to coalesce around that issue, to think of ways and begin to formulate ways for us as a district to address issues of equity and inclusion in a meaningful and sustainable way. And so all of that became the genesis for the REI Council.
Well, thank you. And from what I understand, during the reconfiguration process several years ago, the Michigan Department of Civil Rights recommended that the district hire an equity officer. Can you describe why you went a different route with 3 leaders of an REI council versus 1 dedicated employee?
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned before, when we were thinking about how we all come together around this issue, it became clear that for many of us, we really have a profound and deep investment in Grosse Pointe Public Schools. Each of us has been in the district for a significant amount of time. We have a lot of expertise, and it's connected to our love and passion for this district. Sometimes when an equity officer is hired, and if it's one person, that person may not be a person who's from the district. They can sometimes be an outside candidate, and that can bring a lot of challenges. Sometimes it can be very lonely work to do the kind of work that equity and inclusion work oftentimes is. It takes a lot of trust that people really understand your intentions, your motivations, and what you want and need to achieve. And it takes relationship building that sometimes it takes time and a real commitment. And so sometimes when you hire somebody and here's the person, they do that work on their own. They oftentimes come to a district without the established relationships, social capital, people understanding who they are and what their intentions are. And we felt like being able to figure out who within our district is already demonstrating competence in that work, has a commitment to the district, can deal well with multiple stakeholders of all kinds of backgrounds and interests within the district. And then if that was not just a single person, but multiple people whose hands and thoughts and heart were all in that work together, not only would the work not be lonely, but it would be a lot more fruitful because you have so many stakeholders involved. And we also felt like the levels of stakeholder need to be varied. Everybody from the superintendent to students, community members and parents. So that's where the idea of not just a single person, but a group started.
Thank you. Makes sense. Well, this series is called Voices. Why were your voices chosen to lead this effort? And what do each of you bring to the table?
Well, I'll start. One of the biggest things that we connected with each other is our different areas. So my focus has always been in special education. So that's a different viewpoint that we've not had a lot of times in terms of looking at what we can bring to the table as individuals. So we looked at what we have, our personal experiences, as well as what we could actually support each other as a team. And it's interesting that we work together so well because, we all have our viewpoints and perspectives that we have that come together to bring a powerful team and to really work through some difficult situations, but also in a way that's a camaraderie between the three of us.
Dr. Bishop, you want to add to that?
No, Mrs. Lauder, that was well said. When we think about why us three, I think we've all had experiences in the district and outside of the district, and to be able to share those experiences, to be able to share the experiences that students have shared with us, with not only ourselves but with also our greater community, allows us to really center the experiences of our students in everything we do. When we think about why we do what we do, it is really about making sure our students are best supported. And to be able to do that, we have to make sure that their voice is elevated, is valued, and they are empowered to be able to make the education community that we have one in which they have agency in.
Okay.
I think too, like there's a lot of similarity between all of us, or at least like some notable similarities, but there's also significant differences. And so I think our voices, our experiences, I have a lengthy experience as a teacher. And so my interactions with students, I bring that as a classroom teacher, I bring that to the stage and to the picture. Lily's experience in special education is different than mine, right? So she brings that, and she keeps us in line a lot. She tells me, "Oh, Jeffrey, like you don't understand this way, right?" And like that sort of expertise, the differences that we all exhibit and bring to each other, I think has been a really powerful way for amplifying all of our voices.
Thank you. Well, the three of you were charged with presenting during the opening staff welcome before the start of the school year. In fact, one of the fall grants awarded by the Grosse Pointe Foundation for Public Education earlier this week, a residency program for the Grammy Award-winning Harlem String Quartet, was inspired by that opening gathering. Jeffrey, during that presentation, you used the metaphor salting the water. Can you please describe for our audience what you meant by this?
Well, it was such a powerful image. It came to me when I was trying to make a pasta dish, and I realized that even though I've been cooking for a long time, that I was missing this very fundamental step that apparently anybody who really cooks like knows, that you put salt in the water before you boil the pasta. And when I discovered it, I read more about why it is that you should do that, and the reading of the idea that when you salt the water, not only do you change the nature of the water itself, but you also do something that now makes it impossible for the noodle that you put in there to not take up the salt, right? It's impossible for it to avoid that thing. And so now that pot becomes this ground for the production of the pasta in the way that you want, and it's an even distribution. And the phrase it used was like the quality now like is inescapable. And so I think there's a parallel between that and the work that all educators do, and especially in public education, that we have all these things that are going to be like inside this pot, but certainly like we need to create an environment that no matter who you are or like what's happening in your life or what you need to learn or how you need to learn, that we've done things that are, it's inescapable that this place can be good for you. So there are specific things that we think we can all do, salting the water, so that when a student is in there or a parent is in there or any stakeholder is in there, like they get this experience that makes them feel like they are at the center of education here in Grosse Pointe Public Schools.
Thank you. Well, before we get into some of those specific things or future plans, I just wanted to address the elephant in the room. How do you control the messaging when so much of the work is politicized? That's a tough one. Sorry. Who wants to take that?
Yeah, I'll take that one, Marianne. And Marianne, that's actually a great question, because I go back to and I ask myself, and I talk to a lot of other people and I say, how do we continue to keep a focus on our learners and to be able to help them be well-rounded individuals that no matter where they go after they leave our school system, that they are able to be successful. And a lot of it is around normalizing the conversation and having a platform, a foundation for discussing race in general, and just knowing that we're all trying to make sure everyone is included in the conversation and everyone is seen for who they are as an individual, and knowing that we're just trying to do what's best for our learners. I think when you think about politicizing a lot of things, everyone comes into a conversation with some of their own opinions or their own thoughts. So, some of the practices that we've been versed in as a school district has been around trauma and trauma-informed practices. And there's three things that Dr. Murray, the principal at North High School, is always talking to me about. It's about regulate, relate, and reason. So when we regulate, we really do normalize that conversation. We have it on a regular basis. And that's what we're really trying to do, is to continue the conversation, to be able to ask questions, to be able to listen, to be able to have people share their experiences so we have a deeper empathy for everyone involved. Then we think about relating. When you're truly able to relate to someone, not just hear them. When you're able to relate to them and you have empathy and you can put yourself in their shoes, you truly understand their experiences, and you begin to ask yourself, what does that person need to win to be successful? And then reason. Okay, within reason, if someone needs something, or if there's a reason why someone needs something, how can we band together as a community to be able to get that student exactly what they need? So when I think about how do we continue to keep the conversation focused on the right topic, the right things we should focus on, which is our learners, I think we have to let go of some of our opinions. We have to make sure that we have a common understanding of what we are discussing. And that even goes down to the terms that we are discussing. When we're talking around equity, we need to make sure that we have a platform around equity and have a common definition. That way, we're saying the same thing and we're talking about the same thing. And then we have to continue to have brave conversations. We're not always going to agree. We're going to disagree at times. Everybody does. Lily has disagreed with me. I disagree with her. Jeff has disagreed with me. But we can do it in a respectful way in which we can learn from one another. We can take what we have learned and we can apply it to ourselves to be able to create a consistent change and evolve as people, as individuals, as a school district, to be able to continue to be inclusive and involve everybody to be able to make sure that the Grosse Pointe Public School System continues to offer the quality education that will allow everyone to be a winner outside of our organization.
So, well, what's next? What's ahead for the council? Can you give our viewers a sense of what to expect for the rest of the school year?
So one of the things that to kind of, you said that perfectly, Dr. Bishop, that we've really been trying to make sure we're focusing on is learning. We're all learning. We're learning as we're going through this process. We're looking to try and bring others in so that there's learning that's happening around the board. So one of the biggest things that I appreciate is that we have a dedicated time that's given to our administrators through our ad council. And so we've providing professional development during that time. And that's been a great opportunity for us to be able to make those connections with students, make those connections with families through our administrators. So Dr. Bishop's going to give us a little bit more about that, but that's been a great opportunity for us to be able to use. One thing for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lily. You're right. Like, our next steps is continue to be learners ourselves. I think Jeffrey, Lily, and myself have all acknowledged the fact that we don't have all the answers.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't think there's anybody out there who does. And we continue to make sure that we are including ourselves in different learning. That way we can best support everybody as best as possible. And we're doing that with our administrators. And our administrators are doing that for the teachers that are within their buildings. And a lot of those conversations are around questions. What do we need to do to be able to solicit feedback from the people that we service? What do we need to do to make sure everyone is included? What are our policies? What are our practices? What are even the events that we're having at our school that highlight opportunities for everyone to be included and to build empathy in for everyone within our school system? So when we think about our next steps, it's continuing to have the conversation. It's continuing to work with our principals to make sure they are supported with the language, with the resources, with the tools to make sure that they can confidently have these conversations in their building. And then it's listening to our students, it's listening to our teachers to be able to see what they're encountering on a day-to-day basis and building systems of support around each and every individual so that we can normalize the conversation and we can have an impact on everyone throughout our community.
I think we'll also see that there are really concrete opportunities for staff members, students, and community members to be part of the work. So having opportunities for students to talk about their experiences, all kinds of students, as it relates to race, equity, inclusion. We want them to be in the forefront, amplifying their voices. So that's, I think, one of the things we will look forward to. We look forward to seeing students, community members, teachers be involved in actual concrete opportunities to continue this work this year.
All right. Well, I'll look forward to that and sharing it with the rest of the community as things evolve. But thank you both, to the three of you, for joining me today and sharing a little bit with the community. And for those watching and listening, your voices are valued, and we'd love to hear from you what topics you'd like to see us cover in the future. So feel free to reach out to the communications team at info@gpschools.org. Again, thank you so much for joining me and
Thank you.
here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Ann.